Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Kickback. I am your host, The Dude. And as we do every week, we ask you, if you're going to be racist by any means, please, please, please don't come in this room, don't come on our platform, because we don't do any kind of racism. The kickback is a place for men to have vulnerable and transparent conversations about life, love, mental health, what's going on in the world, and whatever else they may have going on in their lives. Dave, how you doing this afternoon, my brother?
Man, we are doing wonderful, man. It's been a great day. Got a lot done. I'm a little tired, but man, we'll charge back up during this interview. I'm looking
Hey,
forward to
man,
this.
what do you think about today's sunny weather versus what we've had for the last 2 weeks?
Oh man, this is traditional Nashville, man. You know, you get a little bit of bad, get a little rain, a little bit of snow, but then the 50s and the 60s roll back in, and it's t-shirt time and pickleball weather.
The pickleball king over here, Dave, the pickleball king, man. You still ain't got me on the court to teach me how to play pickleball. I'm still trying to figure that out. But you know, with my schedule the way it is now, when it gets warmer, man, one weekend we're gonna have to go do some pickleball, and man, you're gonna have to show me the true art of pickleball and what it takes to be a pickleball all-star like yourself.
Yes, sir. That's a bet. We can do that.
Yes, because I
No
need to
doubt.
tone up, man. After losing all this weight, man, it's time for me to tone up.
Right. Most definitely.
Right.
You gotta do something with it.
So Dave, you got to get me on the court so I can run back and forth.
Hey, side to side, bro. Side to side. Start
Side
slow.
to side, side to
That's it.
side.
Matter of fact, I just got done teaching a class over at Martha O'Brien's. We had some middle school kids, man. It was a lot of fun just doing floor drills with them, just trying to get them in the
Okay.
right position.
That's cool. That's cool. Teaching them how to play pickleball. Well, man, look, um, you know what's going on. I will get back to you in a moment, but hold it down for the kickback, brother.
No doubt.
All right.
Peace. All right, everybody. Well, the dude is got some things going on tonight, so the co-host will be standing in. I'm Mr. V, Brother V, whatever you want to call me. Just don't call me late for dinner because my wife is an excellent cook. And we will be here. We will be having an interview with Mr. Sam Kirk upcoming in about 11 minutes. He's in between meetings, but he said he could squeeze out 30 minutes for us. And I'm looking forward to this interview because Mr. Kirk is a mover and a shaker. He doesn't like to do a lot of talking. He likes to let his work talk for him. He likes to get things done. So until he gets on the line, I am sitting here trying to get a couple of things together for this interview. I was watching the news early today and I saw this young lady. She's a chef and she was on I think she was on the Food Channel, the Food Network. And she's a famous Nashville chef. And she was talking about how, she's in her 40s, but, being a wife, being a mother, being a chef, and running businesses. She's like, man, I'm eating right and I'm getting sleep, but I'm just feeling like I'm heavy. And so she decided to take the Metamucil 2-week challenge. And she was saying by day 3 or 4, she was feeling so much better. And, I was listening to her speaking about, the importance of getting fiber. And that's something that, I think most people don't really focus on is the impact that fiber has on our well-being. Our food sources today are becoming more and more tainted, it seems. And people seem to be eating out more, and definitely fast food is named fast food because it speeds you on the way to the grave. But um, I believe poor gut health is something that we're not really trained on. And when that microbiome in your intestinal region is not healthy, when you have more bad stuff in there than you have good stuff in there, then it's gonna drain your energy because your body has to keep your body's ambulances are running all over your body trying to put fires out because we're not in our best healthy shape possible. So I'm going to do the Metamucil 2-week challenge myself. I'm going to drink me a glass of Metamucil every day for 2 weeks, and I want to see what kind of impact it has on me, because I'm a little bit older than 40, and I've been very active over my lifetime. I've played all sorts of sports, but it just seems here in this last couple of months, for some reason, I'm dragging. I don't recall ever feeling this heavy before in my life. And when I say heavy, I'm not referring to weight heavy, because my weight has not changed. I still weigh the same thing that I weighed when I left the military in 2010. I can still put all my uniform back on, but it just seems like, and even when I'm on the court playing pickleball, I'm still moving well. I'm still quick. And people are like, how do you get to that shot? But it just seems like it's taking more energy. It's taking more effort to put out the same result. And that's concern for me. So I'm going to take this Metamucil challenge and see if it impacts me in a positive way. So if anybody's out there listening, hey, look at yourself and just be honest with yourself and say, hey, am I as light feeling as I could be? Or, am I feeling, am I at my 100% best? Am I at my peak performance level right now? And if the answer is no, then you might want to consider making some changes. And starting by adding more fiber to your diet is probably a great way to go. Because, I think to get your daily recommended allowance of fiber, you have to eat like 7 apples. So I don't know how many of us eat 7 apples, but 14 servings of broccoli. Nobody's going to eat 14 servings of broccoli. So I'm just being real. So if there's a quick way to get your daily allowance of fiber in your system, and you can do it in a glass and drink it, I think that plays into our need for it to be easy. It has to be convenient. We're a convenience society now. Everything has to be convenient. I don't even have to write notes anymore. I can get on my phone and put on AI chat or whatever, and it's going to take notes for my conversation, so that when my wife calls me and tells me what to pick up from the grocery store, I don't have to get in trouble because I forgot to get one thing. I can put on the AI chat feature, and he's going to take notes for me, and then I can go to the grocery store and get everything and come home and not be in the doghouse, or be back in my vehicle driving back to the store to get the one thing I forgot. I don't know how many of you brothers have been through that before, but I'm sure if you're married, you've been through that before. So yeah, think about your gut health. Oh, and the reason that gut health is important is because when you have the more bad bacteria than the good bacteria in your gut, the bad bacteria create small microscopic fissures in the wall of our intestine. And guess what happens when fecal matter passes through those intestines? Small microscopic pieces of fecal matter leak out of those holes into our bloodstream. And then the body's immune system has to kick on, and those ambulances and fire trucks have to go out there and run that down and put that fire out to keep your system from being polluted. And that weighs your system down. That brings down your immune system, and you might be more susceptible to picking up a bug that you normally wouldn't pick up. So I'm really, I've been looking at gut health for a minute. Matter of fact, I went to my primary care provider and got a prescription, got them to send me some acidophilus. And acidophilus is a great way to rebuild the microbiome in your gut system. But you know what? I used up all my acidophilus tablets, the little fizzy tablets, and I was feeling good for a while, and I've been off the acidophilus now probably about 5 or 6 months or more, maybe, because time goes by so quick. We don't even realize how fast it goes by. But now that I've got this Metamucil, I'm hoping that picks up where my lack of acidophilus left off. Let me see where we at for time. It's 6:10. Let me jump back over here, back into the app. All right. So hello world. This is the Kickback, a place for brothers. we lovingly like to say we have barbershop conversation here. I don't know, when I was a kid back in the day, back in the 60s. Yeah, let's go back in time, way back. Back in the 60s, man, my stepfather would take me to get a haircut. He'd get a haircut, and we'd be sitting in the barbershop. And, back then, they had that famous saying, children are what? Seen and not heard. So little David could come, little David could sit, but little David better not open his mouth up. And when little David opened his mouth up, boy, it wouldn't just be my stepfather jumping on me. The other brothers, the older brothers, boy, be quiet. You don't know what you're talking about. So I learned quick. Just sit there, pay attention, glean from the conversation, take what you can get from it. Some of it was over my head and I didn't understand it. But what I could, boy, I tell you what, those brothers was dropping some real knowledge at that barbershop. And since I've been here in Nashville for 12 years, I've found a barbershop that I go to, and we have outstanding conversation. And it's an older gentleman's barbershop. There's not a lot of young people up in there. Ain't no rap music going. Ain't no video games being played. They got a small flat screen TV on the wall, and it's either the news or some sporting event ongoing. But regardless of what's on the TV, it's the conversation. And it's so organic. I might not know every brother that comes up in there, but I've been going to the shop for probably 10 years. So most of the folks that are in there, we've seen each other a time or two, and we might not know each other. We might not hang out in the same circles, but we know each other from the barbershop. And when we get in that barbershop circle, and, it's just open, organic conversation about what's going on in the country, what's going on politically, what's going on socially, what's going on economically. And a lot of times it's what's going on here in the Bordeaux, North Nashville area, because that's where the shop is located. But we have great conversations there. And I love that. And I'm glad that the kickback exists because the barbershops of that type are fading. They're going away. I stopped in at a couple of the more up-to-date barbershops, and they had so much going on in there, and there's women in there, and there's kids running around and playing video games here and doing facials and nails and pedicures there. And I'm like, this just isn't a safe place for brothers to be able to talk about stuff that impacts men. Not without, somebody looking at us sideways or some necks rolling and maybe some heads falling off. But hey, again, that's why we're here on the Kickback. So if you hear this broadcast and you've got a friend and you're like, yo, man, I found a place where, these brothers are having good conversation, man. Invite them to come on in and check us out. We don't hold back from anybody. Come in and express your opinion. If you don't want to talk, get online and talk, you can put it in the chat. Drop some questions in the chat. That's a great thing about the Kickback because nobody can see you. We don't know what you look like. We don't know where you at. We appreciate people from all over the country and all over the globe jumping in on our podcast and being a part of the conversation because when we have folks from Pakistan, Russia, United Kingdom, somewhere, I can't remember somewhere in Brazil. We got people from all over the globe that drop in from time to time. And it's amazing that they understand the conversation and that they're going through the same things that we're going through. So it lets me know that regardless of how big the world is and how separated we are by geography or separated by oceans, man, what's going on in my world is similar to what's going on to another brother's world in South America, in Europe, in Asia. So it lets me know that as a planet, we're more alike than we are different. We all have the same colored blood. No Vulcans here. Ain't no green-blooded people here on planet Earth. We all red-blooded. Whether you are A, B, O, AB, doesn't matter whether you're positive or negative. We all bleed red, and we can all share blood, and we can all live on this planet peaceably if we can only get it together and realize that God created us all in his image, and we're supposed to love him, serve him, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. And what prevents us from loving each other is divisions, isms, and schisms, and failure to communicate. So that's what the kickback is all about. It's about communicating, sharing what you got going on in your life, in your heart. And let's see, I believe we have Pastor Kirk has entered the live studio. Pastor Kirk, are you there? Pastor Kirk?
How are you doing today?
There you go. How you doing today, Pastor Kirk? How are you?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
I'm here.
Yes, sir. But you can't hear me?
Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yes, sir. I can hear you. We're good now. The technology has caught up. How is your day going today, sir?
I've had a full day. A wonderful day, though. Productive day.
Yes, sir. And I was telling my host the same thing. He's not going to be able to be on the show this evening. He's contracted with some other some things going on. So, you and I will be having a conversation. So
Okay.
let me introduce you to our listening audience. We have the pleasure this evening, everybody, to be on the line with Mr. Samuel Kirk Sr. Mr. Kirk is a mover and a shaker here in the Nashville area, particularly in the North Nashville, Bordeaux area. I don't want to steal any of his thunder, but at this time, I would just love to have Mr. Kirk tell us a little bit about himself, his humble beginnings, and give us a little bit about Youth About Business, the program he's been shepherding for 30 years, as well as some of the other things he's got going on here in the North Nashville area. So, Mr. Kirk, tell us all about it.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for inviting me on tonight. Always exciting to see men get together and begin
Amen.
the discussion about what we can do working collectively to get things done in our community.
Yes, sir.
Before I go too far, though, what I did want to say is I actually invited the young man who was the first student to go to Wall Street from Nashville. He's going to join tonight because I thought it'd be interesting for you all to hear his story, because I think that when you see what happens when we train and prepare the next generation, it's amazing the things that we can accomplish as community. Okay. So you may see him in the room come on pretty soon. I sent him the link you sent me. His name is Alvin Wade. So hopefully he'll be able to join here in a few minutes. But let me tell you what happened. I moved to Nashville. The company brought me here in I first came to Nashville in 1976 to work for the company called Southwestern Company. I actually joined them full-time in 1982, stayed with them until 1992. One of the oldest, most substantial companies in the city. We used to own, as a matter of fact, I became part owner of that company. And we own all the land out there where Cool Spring Mall is. So it was an amazing introduction to Nashville. Nashville was a different city back then. I'll never forget when we sold our property to the Cool Spring developer. We needed to get involved to help him bring some people together so he could get that development done. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing, point of note, there were 43 owners, and I always espouse this. What happens when we begin to work together is amazing. So at some point, this thing that Mr. Van Cleef talked to me about, the importance of us coming together and uniting our resources, our intellect, our capabilities, especially as a people, we will be unstoppable because of the love that's in our heart. God created us in a very unique way. But that company, those 43 individuals, there were 2 Caucasian women, 1 African-American male, that's me, and then the other 40 were white males. I don't have anything against them pulling together to do things, but at some point we do need to start saying, let's take accountability for our community and figure out how we can pool our resources and come together. So I was part of that process, learned a lot, took away a lot, but that wasn't where God wanted me planted. So in 1992, I left there, and my dad's a pastor of 49 years. God rest his soul. But I asked him, Dad, why did God call me from the business world into the ministry? And my dad said to me, son, whatever God's going to use you for, he prepares you first. Mm-hmm. So since that time, we have begun to just do work. I left passionate about how do you work to equip and train the next generation of business leaders and industry leaders. You guys all, I'm sure most of us on this phone, if you're from Nashville, you all eat Slim and Huskins. Well, the CEO of Slim and Huskins was part of that training program when he was at Maplewood High School. There's been 9,000 students through that program now. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that, but what I do say is that if we train our children and our community and our next generation properly, if we give them the right tools, they're going to compete at the highest levels. Mm-hmm. So when I use the term we, I hope that you guys understand. When Mr. Van Cleef came by the office, he said something that really resonated with me. He said, I think we have to become responsible for preparing and developing our own communities. It can't be, we saw what happened with Donald Trump today. Everybody who's watched the news, he's cut off all the federal grants and all the federal funding. And, you know, we got to be careful about putting ourselves in position to not be able to respond when acts of that nature happen. So, you know, again, I prefer really dialogue, and I prefer you guys to be able to ask me some questions. But I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk about when I left that corporation, I was very clear. I didn't want to build an independent business. Corporation, the very word itself, stands for a cooperative effort. I watched those 43 of us cooperate our effort. We all had investment. We all had different intellect. We all had different capabilities. But we came together and built something substantial. If we begin to do that, again, as community, as men that come from our community, there is no way we can't create the kind of outcomes we want in our own community. We can impact crime. We can impact economic development. So we can impact our educational outcomes. All that we're able to do when we begin to work together. So just a couple of more things, and then I don't know if Mr. Wade is on now, Alvin Wade, but if he is, I think it'd be important for you to hear sort of his trajectory, because one of the things I found is that cooperative effort, I never wanted to build a business. So everything that I did involved others. I always wanted to pool us together. The very first thing, we bought a strip mall in North Nashville back in 1999. It was a cooperative effort. A lot of people were pooling resources so that we could get that strip mall. Mm-hmm. We were able to establish a business training center. There's two locations, one in Murfreesboro, one in Nashville. But it was cooperative effort that did those things. My last thing I'll say, and then I'll, again, because I really would love to see if there are questions I can answer after Mr. Wade speaks. But the last thing that I'm most passionate about right now, because Mr. Wade Alvin is the program director of Youth About Business now, so he manages the program, he's a product of it. But the last place we have in Nashville, and if we're not careful, we have no more opportunities in Nashville to establish an urban center, and that's in Bordeaux. Bordeaux is the last urban center we got. All the African Americans and people that come from our community I talk to were being displaced, and they understand that it's tough to live in Nashville. So we've got to figure out a solution of what we can do instead of allowing gentrification to happen. We've got to figure out a solution to allow revitalization to happen, where we build our own community through our collective effort. Mr. Van Cleef, I'll stop right there because, again, I could talk about this for a long time, but I always prefer the specific questions and ways I can answer some of the things that the men would love for me to address.
Yes, sir. And I see Mr. Wade trying to come in. Does he? I guess he does have the Podbean app on his phone, and he hit that link. But I don't see him popping up as a call-in.
Okay, well, I'm sure he'll get it figured out. That generation, they're so techy.
He's in the chat, so I'm hoping that my man, the host, the dude, like I said, I know he's in between projects right now. He started the live, but I don't think he's able to come in. Call in turned off. Yeah, he turned the call in off. I don't know if he turned it off or it just turned itself off. We run into that from time to time.
Well, no worries. If he can't get in, that's fine. I'll bring him up to date. But I thought it would be interesting for you all to hear what happened.
He's in now.
He's in. All right. Well, thank you, host. I appreciate you, dude. All right. We got Mr. Alvin Wade in. Mr. Wade.
Yeah. So Alvin,
go ahead, Mr. Kirk.
Yeah. Alvin, can you hear us on the phone? On the podcast? See, those guys are the techies. They always tease me for not being able to figure it out, so I get to tease him now for not being able to figure it out.
That's right.
They call me the old man. I tell them all the time, y'all working this old man, so it tickles me. I'm sure he'll figure out a way to get in. What I was going to say about him, though, is that he was the very first student out of our program in the history of our program. Like I say, we started in 1992 with 7 young people in Nashville. Mm-hmm. We're currently in 18 states around the country. We're in four countries, mm-hmm. and we work with young people from every demographic. But he was the first one to go to Wall Street from Nashville, and he tells me all the time the introduction of demystifying the world of business and Wall Street was so impactful to him. So he's got a very storied career and where he's been, and then he did decide a few years back to come back and help us continue to build in our communities the things that we need to build. So I just thought it would be important to hear his story tonight. But until he gets on, if you guys would love to ask any questions, I'd love to do that.
Yes, sir.
We've got a lot of outcomes out there.
Well, Mr. Wade, if you can hear us whenever you are able, just say hello and let us know you're in the live talk. Mr. Kirk, I was just wanting to know, like you said, you've been doing this for 30 years, but that Youth About Business summer experience, give us some more detail about that, because I thought that was a very fascinating program for young people to experience. Like you said, being able to go to Wall Street and actually, you can live in Nashville all your life, or you can be in Atlanta all your life, but to hear about Wall Street, it's New York, and that's they made movies about the Wolf of Wall Street, but it's just that Wall Street just has this certain connotation that makes you feel a certain way. But to be able to be a young person to go there and actually demystify all of the mystique about it, and to be able to work close in hand with the movers and shakers there, what is that like?
So what we did is, when you deal with our children, let me just say this: our children are brilliant. I hear so many negative attributes laid on our children, and I tell everybody, I never use the word disadvantaged. I never use the word at risk, because those are labels that they like to put on our kids. Our kids are not disadvantaged, and they're not at risk. Our kids are underserved. So if you ever hear me talk, I always call them underserved. And if you service them properly, they're going to achieve and they're going to compete like any other young person. So what we did is we started taking these young people, but you got to be able to capture them. You got to be able to capture their imagination. So the first thing we do, we do this to this day. If they are a rising star in high school up through a graduated senior, so you have to be in high school. We tried it with 8th graders. It's a little bit heady for 8th graders, a little bit too much rigor. But as long as you're currently a 9th grader and you're a rising star, you can participate. And here's what we do. The first thing they do with us is show them how to buy and sell a company. Very first thing. So you got these little 14-year-olds and you hand them a 10K. Most of them have never seen a 10K, no idea what it is. And from that point forward, we begin to demystify what it takes. One of the most significant transactions on the globe, buying another company or positioning yourself to be bought by another company. We understand 14, 15, 16-year-old young people don't have them at their tables. They're not surrounded by them. So we created partnerships around the country. So when they get ready to start doing their legal work in Nashville, they'll work with Bass, Berry, Sim, actual attorneys. And those attorneys sit down with them and talk to them about, here's what due diligence means. So it gives them a chance to understand the due diligence process in a transaction. Then the next people they work with be accountants, because accountants will show them, here's the impact of your financials when you do a transaction like this. So they get a chance to start seeing, okay, what an asset is, what a sheet means, what an income is. They start understanding this stuff, and that's the word demystify. So our young people most of them, what they say to me is, Mr. Kirk, they ever teach us this kind of stuff in school. They're not teaching us this kind of information, but if you're going to be tremendously successful, you need to learn this kind of information to me. And so we see that process, and then after they work with the accountant, they'll work with marketing people, and the marketing people will help them understand how to take merged entity and put it in the marketplace. You got to think about your name, you got to think about your brand, your logo, all those of us that get older, we understand. But at this young age, we never expose it to our young people. And finally, the last session, They have 3 other sessions, but the last major, they'll meet with the investment bankers, and the investment bankers talk to them about negotiation tactics and how to raise billions of dollars it's going to cost to buy the company. So they'll talk to them about stock acquisitions and how do you raise the kind of capital and cash. So by the time they investment bankers, these young people showed up that mom and dad forced them to come. I can't tell you how many times I hear that. My mom made me come. But by Wednesday, Thursday night, they're excited because now they're learning things that are be relevant and very impactful. Then they also meet with technology because with AI and all the things in technology, we have partners with technology corporations, and then they also meet with HR about here's how you properly have to let a team like these things where people come in and make 100 layers. But if they don't do that properly, there's a law that follows. So there's all the stuff that these young 14, 15-year-olds and their minds are now fertile. So they start to understand that's how the world works. And I love to be able to expose that to our community. And the majority of the young people in the program still come from the community. So that's how that works. That's how it works.
Yes, sir. That's a beautiful thing. I love the way that sounds. That's cutting edge, and it's getting our children up out of the standard educational system and exposing them to something, like you say, that's eye-opening, gives them hope to know that, hey, I can get out of here and do.
Yep. And they start dreaming differently. They really do start dreaming differently about potential for their own future. I mean, I could have alumni come and join us over this time, like if from time to time, if you guys want to invite us back, just to hear the kind of things that these young people are doing now. I mean, literally, it was interesting to me to watch how they got that spark when they were 14, 15, 16. Something they started dreaming really different. Even the gentleman with Slim and Huskies, EJ told me, Mr. Kirk, when you took me to Wall Street, I started seeing the world as a big place. I'm at Maplewood High School. I never saw the world that way. These guys are going to be he has one of the most fascinating entrepreneurial stories in the country right now. So it kind of helps them to start understanding. No limitations on what I can achieve. But then you also have to equip them with the skills. You got to give them the information so they can truly, be able to become more competitive in this world.
Exactly.
Mr. Wade, can you all hear me?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Wade.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay. Yep, I'm here.
Now we can. We couldn't hear you earlier.
Okay, it wasn't sure. Nothing changed. I think they solved it a while ago, so that one's on me. So I'll give you 1 point to my 3,000 points, Mr. Kirk.
All right. Oh yeah. So 1 to 3,000 now, but I did win tonight. No
you got this one. New tech is on me. But I would say
I'm happy. I'm glad to hear that a baby boomer can still get a W.
There you go. Especially in the tech world.
Right.
So, Mr. Wade, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So, Alvin Wade grew up in North Nashville, not far from the Youth Ball Business Center. 2 parents in education, one career at Tennessee State, so basically a corporate farmer. My mom was an educator, 30 years in Metro Nashville schools, and so education was always important for us. But there was no one introduced me to business. I think a friend of mine said, "Hey, man, I go to this business training every Saturday, and come to a bowling event." I didn't think much of it. And then that's where I met Mr. Kirk. This man's talking about taking people to New York. You got to think in the 90s, you don't really have internet yet. So you may have some dial-up if you get your hands on an AOL CD. Most people, if you didn't want to play basketball, you want to be a sports agent, but you really didn't know much about the business world. And so here's this opportunity to learn about investment banking and finance and commercial banking, just things that I've never heard of before, right? So between the ages of 14 and 18, through internships, through being exposed to Tennessee State, Vanderbilt University, meeting with accountants, executives, and bankers. By the time I graduated high school, I was ready to go. I got a full ride to Babson College based on articulating my expenses through youth ball business. I had good grades, and Mr. Kirk helped us understand if you want to work in these careers, you have to have good grades, right?
Right.
Because sometimes people will invite you in a space with no intention of having you in those spaces. So you need to take competitive classes. You need to learn how to work hard.
Say that again. Slow that down and say that again.
It's true. People will invite you in spaces and have no intention of actually having you in those spaces. And I experienced that at Babson College. We went to a high school to go mentor some students. And I talked to the director. I was like, how many of these students you think could get in here? And he said none of them because they don't have AP classes at this high school, right? So, so just because they invited you in to see a space doesn't mean that you qualify to be there. And so you got to be prepared. And so, we never grew up with this illusion that just because we're black, we get invited places. You had to be prepared. You had to work hard. We just wanted an equal chance, which obviously if you look at networks, connections, parents, nepotism, you don't have a chance, right? Unless someone comes along and introduces you and prepares you. I think those two things are really important. And so, that was one of my first experiences with accountability. I did very well my first, year in college, and I went to Barclays Capital. I worked in sales and trading and leverage loans, credit default swaps, all that nasty stuff you heard about in 2006. But it was cool. I spent 12 weeks in London, and kind of got to experience that. I got to sit in the driver's seat, put the suit on every day, working downtown New York. And so the cool thing about a place like Nashville and about networks and about just the 12, 15 alumni behind me, if I'm a senior, they're juniors, they're freshmen, sophomores, they did way better than I did. They went to banking. Some of them stayed. A lot of them are managing directors now, vice presidents, living in different states, visiting different countries. And I can draw all these back to, these are Nashville residents. These are people that lived in North Nashville, between the years of 1999 and 2003. And so it's hard to say that the interactions that we had with Youth About Business and with the environment and the connections didn't create an outsized impact. Because again, I went to Hume Fogg, which is a magnet school. A lot of those students still struggled, you're academically inclined, but you still don't have a way to navigate a career. But a lot of those students who went through Youth About Business had an edge. They had a leg up. So we still had to work extremely hard, but you can kind of look back and sort of see where that is. And so just seeing just that intellectual capital and that creativity and just that love for the community and that honesty in terms of what it takes to prepare can pay off, and we can do it. It's not systemic at this point because we understand school systems have limitations, but there is a model in place that, if followed correctly and if supported through parents and students, can create a real pipeline of talent that has proven itself over the last 30 years. So just really congratulatory of the organization, but appreciative of Mr. Kirk and his vision just to even create that and to think about those kids. At this point, I think we're in 18 states, 4 countries last year, that quite frankly just would be disconnected. And I think there's a lot more opportunity because of that.
So there's a model in place to show you how to be successful in the business world.
Absolutely. And it's working. It's been working. The alumni, EJ was on that bus with us to New York. EJ, I think we're one of the first entrepreneurs downtown Nashville of color, right down Broadway, the proof is in the pudding. So at this point, it's not just a test. It's not like we wonder what would happen if we prepared those students. It's more like we know. It's like, this is what happens when you prepare young people. And the question is, can we scale it? Can we get people to really, truly believe in it? But it's good to see how far it's come.
Wow, man, your testimony is beautiful, man. That resonates in me, and as an older, I hate to say older gentleman, but I've seen some things, and I hate to say that I've become jaded in a certain manner or a certain way of thinking, but man, when I hear you speaking, and I'm excited. It gets me excited because this is the breath of fresh air that I think needs to be spread across our area. We need to get a lot more people notified about this pattern is in place. If you're a tailor or if you're a seamstress and you've got a pattern, cutting is no longer going to be a scary thing. You're not going to be afraid to cut the material because you're going to know this is what the pattern has me to do. I just follow the pattern. And now when I go to the sewing machine and put it together, it's going to be a garment.
Absolutely.
It takes all the mystery out of it. I don't have to guess about anything. I've got a pattern in place that's going to show me the road to success.
Absolutely.
Yep. So Mr. Van Cleef, the last part, and I mentioned that, we would join for my, and I think the brothers should, the last part I do want to say though, is we're going to lose North Nashville if we're not careful. Some people say we've already lost it. I don't believe that. I've met with most of the property owners out there on Clarksville Highway that are African American. Most of them are holding on. What they're asking is, how can we do what you came in my office and talked about yesterday? How can we pull together, find ways that we can, because the banks make it very difficult for us when it comes to capital. So we're going to have to be creative in the way that we approach building enterprises in our own community with an unfair banking system. So, and the only way that I think we do that, and Bordeaux, literally, and if everybody on this call is from Bordeaux, Bordeaux literally could be the Harlem of Nashville if we're thoughtful. There's some things happening right now that I hope that you guys and people will help spread. I just got off the phone with about an hour ago, with one of the most prominent actors in all of the country. He's actually going to be at Youth About Business on February 15th. He's been in 103 motion pictures, graduated from TSU. He was in Color Purple. He was in the Heat of the Night. He's been in so many, production. I think we all saw Blindside. He was in Blindside. This brother said, when I met with him in Atlanta, he said, I've been in 103 motion pictures. What we're getting ready to do in Bordeaux right now, this one is so meaningful to me. He tells me that every time I talk to him. He said, man, I'm in my script. Because we wrote a stage play about what happened on Jefferson Street when they displaced our community off of Jefferson Street. Mm-hmm. And most of the people were displaced out to Bordeaux. And now if we look around Nashville, most of the time it always ends up being that we get displaced. And if we don't have a strategy, then we're going to end up losing a very important part. So I would love to be able to spend more time talking about how collectively we can do that. But anyway, for the month of February, hopefully you guys will help us spread the news. This gentleman, again, we start February 15th right there at the Youth About Business Center. We see 300, and it's a great opportunity because the whole messaging is around how do we begin to build the mindset that we can work together to get things done in our community. So I don't want to give y'all any other details about it outside of I'm tired of the Jefferson Street, scenarios happening. I'm tired of Germantown. If you think about, we used to own all of East Nashville to a large degree. They continue to have the same model. So, as I mentioned, Alvin and Mr. Wade, now he runs the youth program, very capable, very competent, understands the program, in the way that the impact it can have for the next generation. So we're going to have, 200 students here in Nashville this year, learning how to do this thing we just talked about, buying and selling companies, how to put strategy around. So if you guys have any high schoolers, it'd be great for you to send them our way. Love to get them engaged and started. But this opportunity of holding on to what I would consider, one of the last areas for our community in Nashville, and doing it in a smart, strategic way with all of us working together, I think something I would love for us to have a discussion about.
Most definitely, sir. That's what this platform is about, and that's what our desire is that not only do we create a safe place for people to have these kind of conversations, but also to take the conversations outside of this virtual setting and bring it into reality where we can start putting rubber to the road to make moves in the right direction.
Yeah. So again, I want to just thank you for having the two of us on tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you. I know that I appreciate your passion and the way that you sort of have been being the champion for this effort. And so I appreciate that. So if you want, let me know if there's anything else that, that we can do. And I do hope to see, I do hope you guys will come and any other closing thoughts on you all side for us though, before we hop off?
Hey, Mr. Kirk, if I was to come jump in your vehicle right now, what would be playing on the radio?
This podcast.
Oh man, I set myself up for that one. Oh man.
Yeah, you did. I did. So I'm driving home. I'm driving home right now.
Outside of the podcast, if you weren't on the podcast, what would you be listening to?
I listen to gospel music. I listen to CNN, and I listen to Fox. Because I think if you don't know what the other side is thinking about, then you're going to end up losing the battle.
You got to have that intel.
That's right.
Got to have that intel. How about you, Mr. Wade? What would be playing in your vehicle if you weren't on this podcast?
Yeah, man. Three things. CNBC, I listen to. I do a lot of Afro beats. If I got to play my own stuff, I'll do that recently. And Freakonomics Radio, I think is just interesting. So they have a channel, just talking about just little tidbits, things like interstate highways and like how that affects economics. So all these things you don't think about and kind of how they relate to how things are today, I think is pretty
Isn't it
cool.
something how the devil is in the details? Those little small things, like those little foxes that will steal the berries off your vine. It's those little things that come and get you.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. This is not our last conversation, Mr. Wade. I definitely want to get an opportunity to sit down with you for sure, because I've got some teenagers in mind that I would love to bring your way, and I'm definitely going to bring some your way.
Absolutely. And you have Mr. Kirk's contact information, I take it. Mine's alvin.wade@youthofoubusiness.org, info@youthofoubusiness.org. We're easy to get in touch to.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Well, gentlemen, I thank you so much. You guys, you hit it out the park tonight. And I hope that everybody that's listening is able to take in some of this wisdom and look at their neighborhoods, look into their families. And if they have youth in their family, let's get their youth and bring their minds into the business realm.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Hey, gentlemen. This is the host, the dude, and I was incapacitated at the moment, but I've been able to listen to everything you all have said. And as a Nashville native, I grew up here in Nashville. A lot of the things you said is very true. A lot of things are very true, and we do need to come together as a collective to try to do things and try to make our communities a whole lot better. But you're starting with the children. I love that. But how do we get the adults, the 30 to 40 to 50-year-old men, to come together when their mindsets are on a quick turnover?
The dude is a great question, because that quick, return, it sits pretty prominent in the minds of many of our people. But I don't know if you've seen that building out on Clarksville Highway, right there next to the Family Dollar.
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay, that's the first 3-story building built in Bordeaux. And what's most exciting to me about it is the owners of that building are the group you just mentioned, 30, 40-year-olds who learned about investing. And so we spent some time, again, moving away, because, again, I spent the majority of my early life doing the next generation with Youth About Business. But there's a whole movement out there now where others that are more established, that have some resources, that want to put their resources into things that can give them a return. There's no quick turnaround anywhere. But when that group came together, it made up of individuals, churches, organizations, that was pulled together so we could do something in our own community. That's why I use the term revitalize. So again,
instead of
gentrify, we can revitalize our own communities, but it will not be done without what you just said. Those 30, 40, 50-year-olds coming together saying, let me take my resources, stop empowering everyone else, which is what we do, and let's put it back into our own communities. And we should be able to benefit. So that benefit it's a structure out there that has been put together to do just what you say.
Right. Because the reason why I asked the question is because I no longer own a business, but I owned a business before, and I'm giving an example. I was in food. I spent 18 years in food, working for different restaurants across Nashville, and I ventured out to do my own thing and tried to get capital from some of the people that I knew, and at the time I was in my 30s, and no one wanted to invest, and I went to the people that I knew and tried to get them to invest in my company, knowing that I had a resume where I'd worked everywhere from fast food to 5-star restaurants, and I had recipes, I had a business plan, I had everything, but I could not get anyone to invest. in me.
Yeah. So you think about what happens to the way they condition us. See, and that's why it's so important. What you guys are doing here tonight is you're changing mindset. See, because the more you change mindset, you heard me say it earlier, you begin to dream differently about the outcome. If you can change the mindset. So once you get a few of us working together to go get something done, then there'll be a few more that say, you know what, I want to come and along because that group did it. We can also do it. And then little by little, we can begin to change the mindset. But that's not an easy process because they've conditioned us for a long time. If you look in the economics of America, the largest consumer group in America is African Americans. Mm-hmm. If you're on the beneficiary side, why would you want to solve that? You benefit too greatly. So why would I want to teach your friends to invest in you so you can go build a competing restaurant? I don't want to do that. So that mindset will constantly be, reiterated over and over again for us. And we have to begin to say, okay, let's get a few of us to start changing it. And then you can begin to create better models for our outcomes. And that's just where I sit. That's my own personal opinion because I can understand. You're not the first person who told me that I had a great idea. I had the experience and the expertise, but I couldn't get people in our community to invest. Don't get bitter behind that. What we have to do is just keep trying to figure out how to join the right groups, go get some accomplishment, and we will slowly but surely begin to create the kind of opportunities in a collective resource way that we can build things in our community. And that building is a representation of that. That building is owned by a collective group of African Americans around the city of Nashville.
All right.
And being out here on Clarksville Highway, it's nice to have a emergency room right down the street on the weekends.
Yep.
That's wonderful. Now, I was listening to your program, and you do high school, and you teach them how to do things. But what about us that didn't learn this when we were in high school and we're much older? What do you suggest someone do at my rightful age in my 40s? Because what you said just sounds so exciting to me, and it's like a program that I'd love to be involved in and maybe take some classes or learn how to be in those spaces.
Right. And you can't really believe how many times that question is asked. So we're right now in the process of framing. I don't know if I should give this, Mr. Bank. I'll say it, but please don't take it and run anywhere with it. But we're gonna have just like we have youth about business, we're gonna do an adults about business. A little bit different framework, but the same kind of. But again, we need to have a place just like what you just said for those in our community that are ready, interested, that want to gain the kind of knowledge. Our program is quite rigorous. So we would have the rigor is what makes it so unique because literally you walk away from it. Alvin, what's the diagnostic when the students first come in? They come in, what's their diagnostic entry and leaving?
Yeah, usually around 9% entry level. So basic questions most business professionals would answer, and then exits anywhere between 81 to 100%. So students typically they get it. They're retaining that information.
So for those that miss it in high school, we're just having to figure out how to make it engaging, interesting, and it's not to be embarrassing at all. It's nothing wrong with us, but I do tell you this. I've seen it. I've seen it because of the environment that I came up in. You can sit in a room with these guys. You heard Mr. Wade mention when he went to Barclays, he worked in credit default swaps. So you can sit in rooms. They can talk around us all the time. They can talk about, a multiple of earning, or they can talk about an EBITDA multiple. And we have no idea what the world is talking about. So we've got to figure out how to get those that are interested in the adult group. If you want to learn it, it's got to be a rigorous curriculum, but start to demystify the world there too, because some of those folks really would be interested in coming and saying, let's go build in our own community now that I have a little better knowledge base. And I just think it's what has to happen. It really does. And so we have thought about adults about business in a somewhat similar but engaging framework.
Mm-hmm.
For adults.
Keep that under the hat.
If it ever comes to fruition, sign me up. I'm
what
there.
What you said?
Well, that's why I think listen, guys, I really think this outcome of what's going to happen when this gentleman comes to the stage and the story of Jefferson Street and how Bordeaux is the next kind of horizon, I think we got to get folks there. And if you come, what will happen is the talk back at the end is going to be, I think it's going to be very thought provoking the way this. I contracted a young lady who's working on her doctorate in data science over at Meharry. She did an amazing job of doing the historical perspective of what happens in an underserved community. She did a great job. So now it gives us a chance to start rallying the troops, and I would love for you all to be there, and certainly it will come to fruition. It's a matter of when, but we've already made the decision. Let's do this because it's important for our communities.
And what is the dates of the performances? It's from the 15th of February until
the 28th.
And what's that location?
Got you.
But if you guys will pass that on, it's right there at the Youth About Business location, 3510 West Hamilton.
All right.
Guys, listen, great visiting with you all tonight. Mr. Wade, thanks for joining.
Thank
all
you,
right.
Mr.
Thanks
Wade.
everyone so much.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Kirk. Appreciate you, sir.
Thank you. If I push this little heart, will that let me off?
No.
Go ahead, Joe.
I got you. Have a great night, sir.
All right, you'll let me off. All right, thank you, sir.
All righty. All righty, Mr. Dave.
Yes, sir.
Man, what a wonderful conversation, my brother. Thank you. While I was indisposed for a moment, you held it down, brother. I appreciate that. And all the knowledge in tonight's show was amazing. I wasn't able to actually be here, but I listened to 90% of what was being said. And like I said before, just a few minutes ago, this gives me goosebumps. It gives me that feeling of wanting to get up and go, because these are the things that I, as an adult, dream about doing in my life. You know, and it's hard. As the story I told is a true story, but like they said, get in the room with like-minded people, and I don't think that some of the people that I've walked into rooms with were on the same page. And I'd love to, and I'm going to be at one of those performances to see this, but I'd love to get in the room with Mr. Kirk and pick his brain and understand how.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Just how. You know, it is that building is a staple of what's to come and what could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then he tells the stories about one of the best entrepreneurial stories in Nashville when it comes to African Americans, Slim and Huskies. Those boys, man, they've done so much in their space, man. They've done so much in their space that it's amazing. And to know that they came from this particular program,
Mm-hmm.
man. Yeah, we got to do something about Nashville, and we've got to get together as a collective. But, you know, the part that really gets me is what Mr. Wade said. It's not being taught in high school. And I think that if we had a program like that in high school, as Mr. Kirk said, you wouldn't have as many children being labeled as whatever the labels that they're putting on, endangered and all these different things. You wouldn't have these labels put on our children because you're showing them something that's guaranteeing they're going to have a future.
Mm-hmm.
And you give them a hand up, not a handout. You're giving them a hand up by letting them understand the business world. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, from what I've heard from different people of other races that already have established businesses and things like that, they bring their sons in, they bring their cousins in, and they show them the business. But how many of us is in that particular space where we can bring our sons and daughters into that space and show them the proper form of running a business, understanding acquisition, understanding marketing, understanding, positioning yourself to be bought? We don't, because most of us as small business owners in the African American community, we're working so hard to keep our heads above water that there's no space for us to teach anyone, or much less ourselves, something new or how to get to the next level. Man, this conversation is amazing. And yes, they will be back on the kickback. Mr. Kirkland and Mr. Kirk and Mr. Wade will be back on the kickback because we need to reiterate this conversation about black economics more. So be looking forward to Mr. Kirk and Mr. Wade being back on the kickback because they're going to be repeat guests. Probably once a month or once every quarter or something, but we've got to reiterate and we've got to share this information so men can understand that, yes, you have emotions, you have feelings. You also got a bank account. You also have children that you need to leave something to besides your funeral bill.
Man, come on, you need to say that again.
You know what I'm saying? Because most of us leave a pile of bills and a notice from the funeral home.
Papa was a rolling stone. Wherever he laid his head was his home. And when he died, he left us was alone.
Right.
And I was wondering now, is that alone as in alone solo or alone, I got to pay this back?
You know what? I never thought about it that way. I just felt like he left y'all alone. Y'all didn't have a father figure, didn't have a man in your life anymore.
Nah, he went to the bank, got some money, and that's why he got killed. And now I got to pay that back.
Or you got a loan to put him in the ground.
Hey, but for real, I dropped the link in the chat box for this performance. You can buy your tickets on Eventbrite. Tickets are $17.85 each. It's called Lost and Found, A Story of Hope. And it's the story of Jefferson Street. And, during the conversation with the two gentlemen, the one thing I wanted to ask, but I said it wasn't the right time, but this is a conversation for our Friday show. I want to throw this question up. Is Black America afraid of moving forward in a corporate way because of Greenwood, Oklahoma, because of Rosewood, because of Charleston? It seems when we go back through the history, every time we get up, every time we show that we don't need your help, your assistance, your programs, we can do it on our own, you find a way to bomb us and burn us out. So do we have something in the recesses of the background of our mind that makes us afraid of success?
Hey, that, like you said, that's a good question. And it's a wonderful question to pose on Friday where we have a bigger panel and, we can get everybody to come in and comment on that. I think that would be an amazing, amazing show to just ask that question and try to break down and figure out which one is it.
Mm-hmm.
Which are we afraid of economic come-ups, or are we afraid that they're going to burn us out?
Right, because we're a threat.
Right.
For people that only makes up about 13 to 14% of the population, we have an economic footprint of $3 trillion. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's a good chunk of change. If we can redirect how we spend this $3 trillion, instead of buying the Gucci bag and every pair of Jordans that come out, or, buying a blooming Mercedes-Benz that you know you can't afford, or, some other high-priced car, or truck, when you know that, living outside of your budget. I think a lot of people make big mistakes because they want to look a certain way, but they can't afford the way they want to look. They don't know how to start small and build your way up. But
Right.
if we can control our spending and have more of a community-minded way of spending our dollars and cents, I think that would be one of the biggest ways we can improve our own neighborhoods without having to ask the Tennessee legislature.
Right. My biggest thing is just, like I said, I guess I've been in the wrong rooms with the wrong people.
At the
And
wrong time.
yeah, at the wrong time, and I can't blame those people. I only blame myself because, yeah, the biggest part is fear, but not coming from a perspective of they're gonna burn me down or whatever. I think it's also the big part for me was, and I'm gonna retract it. It wasn't fear. It was financial literacy. I did not have the financial literacy. I did not have the financial literacy that I needed to have in order to be in the spaces to conduct myself in a business manner and obtain the proper funding for my business.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I would have gotten the proper funding for my business, I probably wouldn't be doing what I was doing right now. I'd probably still be doing that. But you live and you learn. You understand that there is, as long as there's breath in your body and God gives you the strength to wake up and put your feet on the floor every day, there's an opportunity to redeem yourself. And that's the way I look at life, that every day is a new beginning and an opportunity to redeem myself and to make better what I did yesterday and to be better than I was yesterday.
Yeah. I know Morris is back there in the chat line. He's chomping at the bit, boy. Morris, save it up for Friday, bro.
Yeah. Save it for Friday, my man, because it's going to be one conversation. Dave, write that down, put some notes so you can have some notes for that conversation on Friday, so we can have a really great conversation. Again, my brother, I want to say to you, thank you for standing in while I was taking care of business on the outside of it. You did a wonderful job.
Well, thank you, my brother. I appreciate that. I'm learning from the best. I'm just following the big dog.
Hey, I hear you, man. I appreciate that. But, it is time to go.
All right. Enough said.
All
Deuces.
Right. Deuces.
The kickback, the place for brothers.
Man, I love that song.
Yeah. The kickback, a place for brothers. Yeah. The kickback, a place for brothers.